My parents sent a voicemail, "You're out of the family business. Expect a call from our lawyer." I didn't argue. Just replied, "Understood." Then I quietly sold my 40% share, and 48 hours later, 72 missed calls, my sister begging me to undo it. My parents didn't invite me to their promotion celebration at their lake house. "It's just a quiet weekend with close ones," they claimed. Then I found out they flew in my stepsister from Europe. What I did next made them drop their wine glasses. "Roman, honey, it's not a big deal. Just a quiet weekend with a few people from work," my mom said casually over the phone, voice firm like she was already closing the subject. "Oh," I answered, trying not to let my voice crack. "Okay. No problem. Congratulations again." "Thanks, Ro," she replied, and then the line clicked dead. I sat at the edge of my couch in Syracuse, phone still in hand, eyes blankly focused on the spot where Ian had left his karate belt tossed carelessly on the floor. My son had a way of living openly and loudly, a quality I admired and feared he'd lose if our family history repeated itself. That was my parents' way, minimal fuss, minimal warmth. Growing up, I got good at not needing much from them. Still, something about being excluded from this moment. This professional milestone. Hurt in a way I hadn't felt since I was a teenager watching them hand a shiny new iPad to their stepdaughter while giving me a maybe next year, Ro. Let me back up and give some context. I'm 38 now. My parents, Gloria and Colin, remarried about a year after my dad left when I was 16. My dad didn't just leave the marriage, he left me, too. Disappeared out west and cut contact except for the occasional birthday email with a smiley face at the end, like that made up for his absence. I stayed with Mom, who, while not cruel, operated like a woman raised in the school of silent responsibility: work hard, don't talk about feelings, and keep your expectations low. Conrad came into our lives shortly after Dad left. He was the opposite: warm, chatty, well-dressed, and extremely proud of his daughter, Sophia, who lived in London with her mom. Sophia would visit during summer breaks and Christmas. We were civil, even friendly at times, but it always felt like background noise to the golden glow she brought out in our mother. Sophia was articulate, charming, and worldly. I was local, quiet, dependable. But I never made a scene. Never fought for attention. It seemed beneath me, somehow. Or maybe I was afraid I wouldn't win. Anyway, fast forward to the present day. My mom, a federal prosecutor, had just been promoted to chief district prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York, a huge career achievement. I'd heard about it through my aunt, not even from her directly. Still, I called. Congratulated her. Told her I was proud. That's when she delivered the line, "It's just a quiet weekend with close ones." That phrase stuck in my chest like a shard of glass. It wasn't until the next morning that I stumbled across Conrad's Instagram story. He's never been discreet. That's part of his brand, cheerful oversharing from a life of curated perfection. I was scrolling while waiting for Ian to finish his music lesson when the images popped up: fairy lights strung across the porch at Lake George, a long oak table set for what looked like 20 mason jars full of fresh flowers, and a caption that read, "Celebrating our amazing Gloria. Couldn't be prouder. #wineglass #sparkles. I blinked, thumb frozen mid-scroll. Then came the next clip. A boomerang-style loop of people toasting with glasses. There was my cousin Lawrence. Aunt Tina. 2 of her colleagues I'd met at past holidays. And then Sophia. Clear as day. Tall, polished, laughing. Wearing a casual linen dress that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I felt my stomach drop. They flew in Sophia. From Europe. For a weekend party I was told didn't exist. The betrayal was quiet but deep. It wasn't just a lie. It was the choice, the deliberate choice to keep me and Ian away. What was I? An obligation? A reminder of the before time? I sat in my car that night after Ian had gone to bed, staring out the windshield, thinking back to how many times I'd held my tongue. All the events I attended. The polite gifts. The small talk. I remembered Christmas 2 years ago. Ian had made a card for them, hand-drawn, glittered. They looked at it and said, "Nice effort, kiddo," then handed him a Toys R Us gift card with $15 on it. It wasn't about money. It was about investment. Thought. Priority. It hit me then that Ian would grow up seeing himself the way I'd been shaped to see myself, as the extra piece. The one who gets informed, not invited. Not anymore. That night, I called my lawyer friend, Melvin. I asked him if I had any legal grounds to request a formal share of the lake house, something I never cared to touch before, even though it was partially funded by money from my father's inheritance. He said yes. I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to show up. And I was going to speak clearly. The next morning, I woke Ian early. Told him we were going for a drive. Packed a bag with a change of clothes, snacks, and a manila envelope. I arrived at the Lake George house just before 6 in the evening. It was a golden hour. The lake shimmered like glass, and laughter filtered through the trees. I could smell roasted chicken, wine, and summer berries on the breeze. Conrad opened the door, face frozen for a moment like he couldn't figure out if I was a hallucination or a threat. "Roman, he said, his voice too high. What? What are you doing here? Just stopping by, I said calmly. For Mom. He didn't move, so I stepped past him. The living room was candlelit and cozy, the kind of scene you'd see in a Williams-Sonoma catalog. I walked out to the back deck, where the party was mid-toast. My mother stood at the head of the table, glass in hand. Sophia sat to her left. Conversations hushed. Forks paused mid-air. My mom saw me and blinked. Roman, she said, confused and tight-lipped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I walked right up to her and handed her the envelope. What's this? She asked. I answered clearly, a legal notice. I'm resigning as executor of your will. And formally petitioning for my share of this property. A beat passed. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the envelope. Then she dropped her wine glass. It hit the deck with a loud, shattering crack. Conrad, standing beside her, dropped his glass too in shock. No one spoke. I turned, took Ian's hand, and walked out the way I came in. I didn't look back. We got in the car, and I didn't even start it right away. Ian, smart and observant like most 10-year-olds raised on more awareness than I ever had at that age, looked up at me and asked, "Were Grandma and Grandpa mad?" I took a breath. Probably. But that's not your worry. He nodded once and went back to pulling at the loose thread on his shorts hem. I started the engine and drove slowly down the gravel path that wound away from the lake house. The forest flanked both sides, the trees tall and still like they'd seen 100 family dramas before ours. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. I felt clear. I hadn't planned to stay in Lake George overnight, but I needed space. I pulled into a small roadside inn about 15 minutes from the house. Old school charm, floral wallpaper, real keys instead of cards, a polite middle-aged man named Mark at the front desk who gave Ian a lollipop without asking. I paid cash, told him we'd stay one night, maybe two. That evening, after Ian fell asleep watching a rerun of the Great British Bake Off, I sat on the patio with a cup of motel coffee and my phone vibrating on silent. 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Aunt Tina, and a text from Sophia that simply said, "I didn't know you weren't invited." I swear. I didn't respond. Not out of malice, but because I didn't trust myself to speak without unloading years of small, carefully buried slights. The next day was Sunday. I expected silence. I got the opposite. My phone buzzed at 10:47 a.m. It was an email from Mom. Long, which was rare for her. I read it 3 times. Subject, last night, Roman, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. The celebration wasn't meant to exclude you. I thought you wouldn't want to come. I know parties aren't your thing, and Conrad planned most of it. He said you always seem uncomfortable at these kinds of events. As for Sophia, she asked to be here. She was excited. I didn't think flying her in would make you feel like you were being replaced. That wasn't my intention. But maybe I haven't done a good job of showing you that you're important, too. I guess I assumed you knew. We should talk. I don't want lawyers between us. Mom, I didn't know whether to laugh or throw my phone into the lake. I assumed you knew. The irony was sharp. That sentence felt like the summation of my entire childhood. She'd always assumed I knew. Assumed I didn't need extra affection. Assumed I was okay being passed over. Assumed I'd just be there, unwavering, dutiful, invisible. Assumptions are comfortable for the person making them. They're heavy for the ones they're made about. I forwarded the email to my lawyer. By Monday morning, Conrad called. I let it go to voicemail, not surprised at the brittle tone in his voice. "Roman, I just think there's a better way to handle this than making a scene at a dinner. You embarrassed Gloria in front of her colleagues. And Sophia didn't deserve that. She flew all the way here, and you made her feel like she walked into a family war." The message went on, but I stopped listening after that. Conrad had always been a master at making you feel like you were the problem for reacting to a problem. I wasn't interested in defending my pain to someone who was blind to it. Instead, I started writing down everything I remembered about the lake house's history, who paid for what, when it was purchased, what my father had said about the deed in his final letter to me years ago. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. If I didn't stand up for myself now, I never would. The week that followed was quiet. My lawyer filed a preliminary petition. The lake house wasn't just a vacation spot, it was family property, paid for in part by money that should have been left untouched after Dad's estate was settled. But Mom had quietly folded it into her new life, like his contribution didn't count anymore. The law didn't always care about emotional betrayal, but it did care about documents. And I had documents. 3 weeks passed. I heard little from my mother, except one brief call that I let go to voicemail. This time, she sounded older, not angry, just tired. "Ro, I've been thinking. Maybe you're right. Maybe I screwed this up. I'd like to meet you. Just the 2 of us. No lawyers. You name the place." I didn't reply. Not yet. I was still deciding if she meant let's talk or let me talk you out of this. Then, one Friday afternoon, Sophia emailed me again. It was long. Longer than her last. I didn't expect much. But when I opened it, something shifted. "Roman, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I want you to know I really didn't know you weren't invited. I assumed you'd be there. When I saw you on the deck, I realized how off things must have been. You were always kind to me. I never felt like a real sibling to anyone, but you treated me like I mattered, even when no one was watching. I'm not defending Mom. She favors me. She always has. But it's not because you're lacking. It's because she's blind to what's in front of her. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm in your corner on this. Sophia. I didn't reply to her either. But I reread that message more than once. Meanwhile, Ian asked a question that cut through all of it. Are we still going to the lake this summer? We'd gone almost every year. Mom and Conrad made a habit of inviting us for one long weekend in August, when the water was warm and the house smelled like cedar and sunscreen. I looked at him and said, we'll go somewhere better this year. Somewhere that's ours. And I meant it. By mid-June, the weather was already climbing into the 80s. Syracuse was sticky and bright, and the end of school year chaos kept me just busy enough to keep my head from dwelling on everything too hard. But my lawyer didn't slow down. He'd already requested documentation from the county assessor's office on the lake house, and things were moving. I wasn't seeking a fight. That's the part people misunderstand when you stand up for yourself, especially within a family. You're either accused of being dramatic, bitter, or money hungry. But this wasn't about property. It wasn't about money. It was about decades of being quietly erased. Every call missed, every moment passed over, every little favor given to Sophia while I played the reliable one in the background, it added up. People talk about betrayal like it's one big moment. But sometimes, it's an accumulation. And this was the overflow. The formal letter of petition for equitable interest in the lake house went out in July. I didn't hear from Mom for 2 days after that. Not a call. Not a text. Then came a letter. An actual letter. Mailed to my home address. My hand shook when I saw the envelope. The handwriting was familiar. Mom always had the kind of meticulous penmanship you'd expect from a woman who never allowed emotion to clutter logic. The letter was short. Roman, I've spoken with an attorney. He says you have a case. I want to fix this, but I don't know how anymore. You won't talk to me. I feel like I've already lost you. Maybe I did, a long time ago, and I was too stubborn to see it. Do what you need to do. I won't stand in your way. Gloria. I folded the letter and set it down without crying. I didn't feel sadness anymore. Not really. What I felt was grief, the kind that comes from finally seeing someone for who they are, not who you'd hoped they might become. A week later, I got a call from my Aunt Tina. She rarely inserted herself into drama, so I was surprised to see her name on my screen. I'm not calling to take sides, she said the moment I answered. Okay, I replied cautiously. I just think your mom really didn't expect you to ever push back. And it scared her. Not because of the house, but because it made her realize she could actually lose you. Maybe she already did, I said quietly. Aunt Tina paused. Maybe. But I think you should meet her. Even if it's just to say everything out loud. I'm not sure she'd listen. Then say it for yourself, not her. That stuck with me. I waited another week. It was the last Friday in July when I texted Mom, if you still want to talk, I'll meet you. 1 hour. Public place. No pressure. Ivy Library Cafe? 11 a.m. Sunday. She replied within 5 minutes. I'll be there. The cafe was quiet when I walked in. Sunday mornings tended to be that way, just a few grad students reading, one older couple playing chess near the windows. I spotted her right away. Same pressed blouse, same seat posture like she was preparing to argue in court. But her eyes. They looked different. A little sunken. A little unsure. I sat across from her, ordered nothing, and folded my hands in front of me. She started first. I didn't think you'd come. I wasn't sure I would. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then I said, you lied to me. She nodded. I know. You excluded me. Again. And this time, you went out of your way to bring in someone else. That wasn't accidental. That was a decision. She inhaled like she was going to argue, then exhaled instead. I thought I was protecting you from feeling out of place. You mean you were protecting yourself from guilt? You didn't want me to be a reminder that not everything in your life has been tidy. Her jaw clenched slightly. She didn't deny it. I've spent most of my adult life trying not to make you uncomfortable, I continued. Trying to be easy. Low maintenance. But it cost me. And I won't raise Ian in that same dynamic. I never meant to make you feel second. I gave a dry laugh. You didn't make me feel that way, Mom. You just never made me feel like I was first. Not once. There was a pause. Something cracked a little in her expression, just beneath the surface. I know I favored Sophia. I was proud of her in a way I don't know. Maybe it was easier. She didn't remind me of your father. She didn't remind me of my failures. There it was. The confession I never thought I'd hear. You never gave me the space to be more than what I reminded you of, I said. And I've had to live with that weight every year since. She nodded slowly. I don't want to fight you over the house. If it means that much, take it. I shook my head. I don't want the house. I want acknowledgement. I want you to stop pretending like I haven't been here this whole time. I want you to realize that I showed up, even when it hurt. Another silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, she said finally. The words hung in the air like something fragile. I don't need an apology, I said. I need change. She looked at me, this time with something closer to understanding. Or maybe it was just age finally catching up to her. Ian is growing up, I added. And I'm not going to let him feel like he's a footnote in his own family. If he's going to have a relationship with you, it has to be on equal terms. Not crumbs. Not convenient. I understand, she said. I hope you do. We didn't hug. There was no big emotional crescendo. We left separately. I walked to my car and sat in silence for a moment, the summer sun hot on my windshield, my hands gripping the steering wheel not out of rage but relief. It wasn't resolved. Not yet. But it was said. It was finally said. The meeting with Mom stayed with me in ways I didn't expect. Not because it magically fixed anything, it didn't. She said the right words, but words are cheap currency when they come after decades of emotional debt. But it clarified something in me. I no longer wanted the house. I wanted what I had never gotten: acknowledgement, accountability, and autonomy. And I was going to get them on my terms. Over the next few weeks, the legal process carried on. My lawyer and I formalized a revised petition. We were no longer demanding a forced sale or direct share of the lake house but instead a financial buyout equal to the contribution from my father's estate, with accrued appreciation over the years. The math was strong. The paperwork was stronger. But I was playing a longer game now. While the law worked itself through the motions, I quietly got in touch with a local real estate agent in Lake George, a woman named Ray, who specialized in high-end lakefront rentals. I wasn't selling the house. But Ray was experienced in something far more interesting: luxury property event rentals. I remembered something Sophia had once said in passing at a Christmas dinner, years ago. This place is perfect for private company retreats, she'd said, swirling a drink by the fireplace, talking to one of Mom's law partners. Someone could easily make $10 to $15 grand a weekend renting this to Manhattan execs. I never forgot that line. So with Ray's help, we ran some numbers. Set up a profile. Took high-end photos which, incidentally, included none of the family photos or heirlooms. Ray had a pipeline of clients, film crews, retreat planners, even destination wedding organizers. She was ecstatic. By late August, the lake house had 2 full weekend bookings and 3 long-term inquiries. But here's the part where it came full circle. I had listed the property under a corporate shell, registered in my name and my father's maiden name. All legal. All traceable. But not immediately obvious to a casual observer. My mother had no idea. Not yet. I finally reached out with a proposal. Gloria, you said you don't want to fight. So here's the path forward. You buy out my claim based on the adjusted equity from Dad's estate portion, and we put this behind us. I've done the math. It's fair, and it's final. Or if you prefer not to liquidate, the property can begin paying the debt back to me directly. I've already arranged a structure. Think it over. Roman. The next morning, I received a terse response. You've rented it out? This is our home, Roman. Not a hotel. Mom and Conrad. I let them stew for 3 days before responding. It was my father's investment too. And you denied me a seat at the table. I've created my own. This is business, Mom. Just like you always taught me. You can either buy me out, or you can share the keys with strangers. The choice is yours. That was the moment things shifted. They tried to push back, insisted on having their attorney send a letter asserting their sole ownership. But my lawyer met it with documentation. Paper doesn't lie. Dates, transfers, deed amendments, all of it told the story they had tried to forget. They went quiet after that. Then, 2 weeks later, I got a call. We'll pay for it, she said, voice hollow. All of it? Yes. Fine. My lawyer will handle the paperwork. Click. With the settlement completed, I received a lump sum payout that changed everything for me and Ian. I used it to put down cash on a craftsman-style home in the outskirts of Ithaca. Quiet, full of trees and light, with a big backyard and enough room for Ian to host sleepovers and science club meetings. It wasn't flashy. It was ours. The first night in our new home, we slept on camping mattresses in the empty living room. The house still smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Ian had brought his telescope, and we stayed up late watching the stars through the wide bay window, naming constellations and making up stories about distant galaxies. Dad, he whispered as he was drifting off to sleep, is this really our house? Like, forever? Yes, I assured him. This is our home. No one can take it away. He nodded, satisfied, and fell asleep with his hand still resting on the telescope. I stayed awake longer, listening to the unfamiliar creaks and settling sounds of our new home, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. Over the following weeks, we made the house truly ours. Ian chose a deep blue for his bedroom walls, like the night sky, he explained seriously to the paint store clerk. I built bookshelves that spanned entire walls, filling them with our combined collection of novels, science books, and the comic series Ian had recently discovered. We planted a small vegetable garden in the backyard, tomatoes, peppers, and herbs that Ian meticulously labeled with hand-painted stones. On weekends, we explored our new neighborhood, finding the best ice cream shop, Molly's on Oak Street, the most comprehensive used bookstore, Reader's Corner, and the park with the perfect climbing trees, Willowbrook. The settlement money also allowed me to scale back my working hours, shifting from 60-hour weeks to a more reasonable schedule that let me be present for school pickups and evening homework sessions. This simple change, being consistently available, seemed to help Ian flourish in ways I hadn't anticipated. His science teacher called one afternoon, not with concerns but with praise. Ian's project on solar energy was exceptional, she told me. He has a real gift for explaining complex concepts. Has he always been this engaged? The truth was, I didn't know. I'd been so consumed with work, with surviving, with navigating the complicated dynamics with my mother, that I'd missed seeing parts of my son developing right in front of me. The realization was both painful and motivating. I wouldn't miss any more. I used the rest of the settlement to take Ian to Scotland for a summer adventure, something we'd always dreamed of but never had the means to do. We stayed in old stone cottages, visited the Isle of Skye, and hiked trails that overlooked the sea. One evening, as we sat on a cliff watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson, Ian turned to me with a serious expression. "Dad, why did you fight so hard about the lake house if you didn't even want to keep it?" I considered my answer carefully. It wasn't about the house, Ian. It was about being seen and valued. Sometimes in life, you have to draw a line and say this is what I'm worth. Not because you want to hurt anyone, but because you need to honor yourself. He nodded thoughtfully, picking up a small stone and turning it over in his hands. Like when Jake tried to make me trade my rare comic for his regular one just because he's bigger? Exactly like that, I smiled. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. He tossed the stone gently into the sea below. I'm glad you stood up to Grandma. And I'm glad we're here instead of at the lake. Me too, I said, putting my arm around his shoulders. This feels like magic, he whispered, leaning against me as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon. And I smiled knowing that he'd never feel like he was waiting for permission to matter. As for the lake house? Mom and Conrad kept it. But they don't host parties there anymore. They don't rent it. They don't even talk about it. My cousin Lawrence told me they had the dock repainted and the porch furniture removed. It sits quiet now, like a museum to a family history that no one wants to revisit. The following months taught me things about family and boundaries that decades of silent compliance never could. I learned that standing your ground doesn't mean you love less, it means you love yourself enough to require respect. I learned that the worst fear, confrontation, often leads to the greatest clarity. Most importantly, I learned that Ian was watching, absorbing, processing everything. One evening in late October, as we sat on the porch of our new home, the autumn air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves, Ian looked up from his homework and asked, "Dad, why didn't we ever talk to Grandma like that before?" The question caught me off guard. Like what? Like telling her when things weren't fair. I put down my coffee and considered my words carefully. I think I was afraid of losing what little connection we had. Sometimes when you're young, you'll accept any kind of love, even the kind that hurts, because it feels better than no love at all. Ian nodded thoughtfully, pencil tapping against his math workbook. But now we don't have to pretend anymore? No, I said firmly. We don't have to pretend anymore. That conversation shifted something in me. I realized that in my quest for acknowledgement from my mother, I'd overlooked how much my son needed to see me stand up for myself, for us. Children don't just learn from what we tell them, they learn from what we tolerate, what we accept, what we fight for. The first snowfall of December brought an unexpected delivery to our door, a large package addressed to Ian from Gloria and Conrad. Inside was an elaborate remote-controlled drone, the kind Ian had been eyeing in catalogs for months. The kind that cost several $100s. My first instinct was to send it back, another gesture of material value without emotional investment. But instead, I sat Ian down and asked him what he wanted to do with it. "Can I keep it?" he asked hesitantly. "Do you want to?" He thought for a moment. "Yes. But not because it's from Grandma. Because I like drones." I smiled. "Then it's yours. But here's what I'm thinking, why don't we invite Grandma and Conrad to come watch you fly it sometime? If they want to be part of your life, they need to show up, not just send things." The look of relief on his face told me I'd made the right call. "So we're not cutting them off completely?" "No," I said. "We're just changing the rules of engagement. They can be in our lives, but on terms that respect us both." I texted Gloria that evening, "Ian received the drone. He loves it. If you'd like to see him fly it, we're at Wilson Park on Saturdays around 10 a.m. No pressure." 3 Saturdays passed with no sign of them. On the 4th, they appeared, Gloria in her tailored weekend attire, Conrad looking uncomfortable but present. They stood at a distance at first, watching Ian navigate the drone through the winter sky. I approached them first. "Thanks for coming." Gloria nodded stiffly. We weren't sure if the invitation was genuine. "It was," I replied. "Ian has your stubbornness, you know. Once he sets his mind to something, he sees it through." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Wonder where he gets that." We stood in silence for a moment, the drone buzzing overhead. Then Gloria spoke again, her voice quieter. "I've been seeing someone. A therapist." This surprised me. Gloria had always dismissed therapy as paying someone to complain. It's helping me understand some things, she continued. About how I pushed people away. About why I favored Sophia. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Roman. I just wanted you to know. I didn't know what to say, so I simply nodded. Progress wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. A recognition, perhaps, that the patterns that had shaped our family didn't have to define its future. Later that winter, I received another email from Sophia. Unlike her previous communications, this one was brief and to the point. I'm in New York for business next month. Could we meet? Just us. I understand if you're not interested. I surprised myself by accepting. We met at a small cafe in Manhattan, neutral territory for us both. Sophia looked different, less polished, more authentic somehow. I broke up with Joel, she said, stirring her coffee. Too much like Mom. Always critiquing, never satisfied. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. It made me think about patterns. How we repeat them unless we consciously break them. She looked at me directly. You broke the pattern, Roman. It took guts. We talked for nearly 2 hours that day, not as the favored and unfavored children of a fractured family, but as two adults trying to make sense of a shared history. She told me about her struggles living up to Gloria's expectations, the pressure of being the perfect child, the exhaustion of maintaining an image that never felt authentic. Being the favorite isn't always easy either, she confessed. You're only loved for what you achieve, not who you are. I'd never considered it that way. In my narrative, Sophia had always been the lucky one, the chosen one. But favoritism is its own kind of prison, conditional love disguised as privilege. We parted with a tentative plan to stay in touch, something I wouldn't have imagined possible months earlier. I drove home that evening thinking about the complexity of family systems, how we all play our assigned roles until someone disrupts the script. Spring brought new changes. Ian joined a local soccer team and thrived in the camaraderie of team sports. I started dating again, cautiously, mindfully, a woman named Elena who taught art at Ian's school. She had her own complicated family history and understood the importance of boundaries. My relationship with Gloria and Conrad evolved into something I can only describe as cordial distance. They attended Ian's soccer games occasionally, sitting quietly on the sidelines, applauding his goals with genuine enthusiasm. We never discussed the lake house or the legal battle, as if by mutual agreement those topics remained off limits. One Sunday in April, almost a year after the night I showed up at their party with legal papers, Gloria called. Conrad and I are selling the lake house, she said without preamble. Oh? I kept my voice neutral. I thought you loved that place. We did, she admitted. But it doesn't feel the same anymore. Too many ghosts. I understood what she meant. Places hold memories, and sometimes those memories become too heavy to bear. We're looking at a condo in Arizona, she continued. Something smaller, simpler. A fresh start. That sounds nice, I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. We'd like to see Ian before we go. Maybe take him shopping for his birthday? If that's all right with you. The old me would have immediately accommodated, rearranged schedules, made it work at any cost. The new me considered boundaries. He's got soccer on Saturdays, but Sundays are free. You could come for lunch next weekend if you'd like. We'll be there, she said. I could hear the surprise in her voice at my directness. That lunch was stilted at first, all of us navigating the new terrain of our relationship. But by dessert, Ian was showing them his science fair project, and Gloria was actually listening, not just nodding politely, but asking questions, engaging. Later, as they were leaving, Gloria handed me a small manila envelope. Inside was a check, not for Ian, but for me. What's this for? I asked. It's the rest, she said softly. The full value of the lake house, not just your father's portion. Conrad and I talked about it. We want to close this chapter properly. I stared at the check, the amount far more than I'd expected or demanded. I don't need this. I know, she said. That's why I want you to have it. Not because you need it, but because it's right. I put the check in my pocket. Thank you. She nodded, and for a brief moment, I saw vulnerability in her eyes. I miss him too, you know. Your father. Despite everything, it was the first time in decades she'd acknowledged the grief we shared, the absence that had shaped us both. I didn't have words, so I just nodded. After they left, I sat on the porch swing, thinking about the strange journey of the past year. How a moment of painful clarity had led to this unexpected resolution. I didn't feel victorious or vengeful. I felt free. Free from the weight of unmet expectations, free from the need for approval, free from the old patterns that had defined my place in our family for so long. They tried to offer Ian a gift that Christmas, a check in a red envelope. I returned it, uncashed, with a note. Teach him how to build a campfire instead. Be useful or be gone. They never replied. But 2 weeks later, Conrad called Ian directly and asked if he'd like to go fishing when the ice melted in spring. Ian looked at me, and I nodded. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about presence, about showing up, about being real. The following summer, we didn't go to the lake house. Instead, we took that trip to Scotland. We hiked the misty highlands, explored ancient castles, and sat by roaring fires in rural pubs. One evening, as we watched the sunset over the Isle of Skye, Ian leaned against my shoulder. "This is better than the lake," he said. "Why's that?" I asked. He thought for a moment. "Because we're actually talking and doing stuff together. Not just being in the same place." Out of the mouths of children, such simple wisdom. When we returned, there was an invitation waiting, Gloria and Conrad's housewarming in Arizona. I politely declined but suggested they visit us in Ithaca in the fall, when the leaves changed. They did, and the visit was neither perfect nor disastrous. Just real people trying, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding at being family. As for me, I found peace in the understanding that family isn't something that just happens to you, it's something you create, consciously, intentionally, every day. Through boundaries that protect, through honesty that heals, through presence that affirms. Revenge doesn't always look like slamming doors or raised voices. Sometimes it's a man calmly rewriting the script his family tried to hand him. Sometimes it's reclaiming what was yours all along. Not for the sake of anger, but for healing, on your own terms. And making damn sure your son knows he never has to beg to be seen.